Kick things off with a bark from my dog. Welcome, boys and girls, to our unit on biodiversity. And we are going to be looking today at, once I move myself out of the way, classifying animals, the vertebrates, because we've already looked at the invertebrates, and now we're moving on to animals with a backbone. So having said that, let's get into it. Okay, so remember from before, the animal kingdom has a wide diversity of living things. It's common to group animals into two different categories, ones with backbones and the ones without. So the vertebrates, like us, double check, yep, we've got one. We have a backbone, okay? So that's us right in here, and there's some examples, and then the ones without a backbone right in here. So it's all about if we've got a spinal column or not. The ones we're going to look at today, so I move myself out of the way. Again, vertebrates, a member of the animal kingdom that has a backbone. We already dealt with the invertebrates, and now we're focusing in on the vertebrates, and specifically these 5 subcategories: fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and the best ones for most of us, myself included, are all the mammals, okay? So just a quick reactivation of why this is so important, okay? Why is classification of living things important? It can't just be random. We can't just have things all over the place. Like, scientists need a way to group things, and it helps us learn a little bit more about them. If things are similar, you can sort of start grouping them together and make assumptions when you're discovering new species, because like we discussed earlier, we're discovering new species all the time. So all organisms, living things, okay, are grouped because they share certain characteristics. In order to identify the organisms, you should know what makes them similar to and different from other organisms. And that's how we're able to place them in different categories and learn more about each animal or any organism, I guess. So by learning how these organisms or living things are sorted and grouped by their characteristics, you're better able to find out more information about them. And by classifying them, classification is a way to keep things organized for all scientists. So that's just a good way to do it. All right. Let's look at the characteristics of vertebrates. So the first one we're going to look at is, remember the 5 that we went through? We went through fish, amphibians, reptiles, birds, and then mammals. The first 3, fish, amphibians, and reptiles, they're all cold-blooded. That means that the temperature of their body is the same as the environment around it. They don't use a lot of energy to keep the body, to keep the inside of their bodies warm. So like a snake, they come out in the heat. And if they want to warm up, they got to come out and absorb some of the sunlight. Okay, or when they come out from the spring after hibernation, oftentimes they'll wrap up with other snakes so that they can get enough heat from the body heat from other snakes as well. So it's kind of interesting to see. On the other hand, birds and mammals were warm-blooded. So that means that the body temperature is maintained always at, for us humans, okay, 37 degrees Celsius all the time, right? Unless you got a fever and then you're off. So we're always consistently spending a lot of energy keeping our bodies at a consistent 37 degrees. It's too hot out, well, we start sweating. It's too cold out, well, sometimes we shiver. We use a lot of energy to keep ourselves at 37 degrees. All right, so let's have a look here. So I am not one of these fish here, even though I can put myself in there. Fish, most bodies are covered with scales. They're cold-blooded, as we previously discussed, and then they breathe through gills. Okay, now, they don't have lungs. They breathe through the gills and pick out the oxygen in the water that way, because water, H2O, contains oxygen. So they still use oxygen, but they get it through gills versus lungs. And a lot of them, most of them, lay eggs. So the examples that we're looking at in these pictures are an angelfish, and that's its bone right there. You can see sort of its backbone moving through there. A cod, and then a shark. Very cool. Amphibians. Come on up here. So these are your frogs, salamanders, and the smaller versions, newts. Very similar, but different in their own right. If you've ever picked up a frog, you notice that they're soft and they always feel sort of wet. So you can sort of press down a little bit on them. You don't want to press too hard, obviously. But their skin isn't hard. It's soft. It's moist. They have 4 legs and often have webbed feet, and that's an adaptation for swimming in the water. They're cold-blooded, as we discussed earlier, and most of them lay eggs. Very similar to amphibians, but again, different in their own right, are the reptiles. And these reptiles don't have soft, moist skin. They have like hard, dry skin. So if you've ever felt a lizard before, or if you picked up a snake or turtles, you know that they're dry and they have sort of hard overlapping scales. Most of them have four legs again. They're cold-blooded again, and most lay eggs, but the difference is the skin, right? So here we've got a lizard and the lizard skeleton. You can see that backbone again, a snake, as we've talked about, and a turtle as well. Birds. Now we're getting into the warm-blooded ones. And again, you notice there's the spinal column right there, the backbone. Birds have feathers, if you didn't know. They also have beaks or bills for a mouth and no teeth. They're warm-blooded, and they breathe through lungs. So you can see the different characteristics allow you to decide which column or which category they fall under, okay? There's a pigeon, hummingbirds, which are so cool. If you want to do any research at the end of this, you're going to have to do a little activity. Hummingbirds are really cool if you don't already know a lot about them. And robins. Okay, so lots of things that we see around here as well. Mammals, save the best for last. Woohoo, that's us. Okay, we all have hair at some point in our development. We're warm-blooded. We've got that spinal column. You did a little check. You're like, all right, I'm a human. And mothers nurse their young, okay? And we obviously breathe through our lungs. So here are some examples. Humans, our skeleton, dogs, and giraffes. Mammals, those are the things we sort of gravitate to. We know a lot about them. Your turn. So what you're going to do is you're going to work on it. You're going to show everything you know and put together a bunch of things that we've been working on from start to finish. A little bit of research, a little bit of sourcing and documentation, but then a little bit of creativity in there as well. You get to choose what you want. You're going to show off your work on Google Slides, your tech stuff, and you're going to get to choose one or more animals. So if it's more than one, don't do more than one mammal. If you're going to choose a mammal, go for a mammal. But if you're going to do more than one, you're going to do 2 or 3. The next one should be a reptile or a amphibian or a fish or a bird. Okay, so if you're doing 5, if you're reaching for excellence, you should have one from each different category. You should have a mammal, a bird, fish, amphibian, and reptile. Okay, not more than one of each. So one per slide, just a slide on each. Include a picture. And then what I want you to do is include these characteristics based on research. So you're going to Google research, find some good materials. Okay, find a list of make a list of the references that you're using, a bibliography on the last slide. Everything can be on that last slide, and use EasyBib. So if you find 2 great websites with all the information, put them on there. If you have more than that, put them on there as well. But we've done this before, so just a bit of a reactivation there as well. And put that on the last slide. So you should have a minimum of 2 slides. One will be the animal that you've chosen with all this information and a picture from Unsplash or Creative Commons, whatever one you want to choose. And then the last slide, no matter what, you're going to have a bibliography. Okay. So and then you're going to tell me how they have the same characteristics as its group. So once you've researched an animal, whichever one you choose, or multiple ones, tell me its body shape and description. Okay. This can be point form. Is it warm or cold-blooded? How does it breathe? Any adaptations that help the animal survive in its habitat, like we talked about the webbed feet for a lot of the amphibians to help it swim. I mean, that's an adaptation, so it swims faster, right? And how it feeds. Okay, so you're going to mention A, B, C, D. That can be point form, a picture of it, and then on the back slide, bibliography. Okay, and if you've got any questions, you're going to ask me. Good luck.